So to start with for today, on that blank notability doc, just put a smiley face on it like this and turn it my way so I can see you've already got that part done. I'm still waiting for, it looks like 4 people. Keep them my way because I got to wait till we've got everybody. Lily, that goes in the backpack right now. And, all right, thank you. Okay, good. So now we have a lesson that starts with, do you even know what this means? Square. Yeah, it's a square root of 16. Sneak preview, if they ever put it to the 1/2 power, that's what that means. 1/2 power means the same exact thing as the square root. What's the answer anyway? 4 is correct, because 4 times 4 makes 16. All right. Is that it for today? No, of course not. But what if I had the square root of 20? What do you do with it? Well, would you agree it's a little bigger than the square root of 16? Doesn't that make sense? Square root of 16, square root of 20. Well, square root of 20 is going to be bigger. So if you had to estimate it, it's going to be like 4 point something. You know what I mean? It's got to be bigger than 4 because 16 gave you 4. So this is going to be like 4 point something. How do I know it isn't 5? Let's say 4.7 maybe, but how do I know it isn't 5? Because the square root of 20 what? 25. That would have been 5. Do you get that square root of 20 is right between 2 that we know? These things that we know, they're called perfect squares. Do you get that this one is kind of between this one and this one? That make sense to you? Kind of sandwiched in between those two. All right, so then exactly what is it? I really don't know. I haven't looked up the square root of 20 lately. I could use a calculator to do it. You're not going to use a calculator for these, though. You're going to have to give them as not decimals. You're going to have to give them as simplified answers. But we have to estimate them. So to estimate this, yeah, I'd say it's a little closer to this because it's only 4 away from that, and it's 5 away from that. So it's a little closer to 4. So do you get 4.4? Keeps it a little closer to 4 than it is to 5. All right, that's an estimate problem. Let's do another one like that. Square root of 36. And the square root of, what's the next biggest one after that?
41.
Very good. Would you please tell me those two answers? Liv, do you know one of them? 6. Good. E and A, what's the other one?
7?
Yes, because 7 times 7 makes 49. Okay, then what's in between the two? Well, I could say anything that's in between the two, like square root of 37. Would you agree that was really close to 6? So if you're going to estimate it, put your estimate right there, right in between them. What do you think it is? I'll tell you in a second. Square root of 37. What is the square root of 37? It's 6.1 is what it rounds to. How many of you guessed 6.1? See how you can be just about as good as the calculator if you just kind of know what it's close to? All right. So without even sandwiching it between two things, the square root of 101. I know you don't know it exactly. Think about what you do know that's close, and then give me your best decimal estimate. Like maybe it's 9.6. That would be wrong, but, you know. How many of you thought of the square root of 100 being close? That was good, because that was 10. So what do you think the answer is? 10.1. It might even be close enough to round to 10. But we'd know it was a little tiny bit more than 10. Okay, that's called estimating square roots. You feel like you can do that? All right, well, one more that's more weird. Square root of 28. So think of one that's close to it, and then think of whether you're bigger or smaller than that. Amelia, what's kind of close to this? Square root of 20. Yeah. And what's that? So then the answer of this one would be about, well, would it be bigger? So like maybe 5.2. I don't know exactly. If you'd said 5.1, 5.2, or 5.3, I'd have been fine with that. How many of you were somewhere in that neighborhood? Okay, good. So that's estimating square roots. Skill number 2. Square root of 20 could also be done this way. Do you remember making these little trees, square root of 4 and the square root of 5? You break it into 2 square roots. If you never did this, you missed out. It's kind of fun. And then one of those two actually works out really nice. Carl, which one of those two works out nice?
4.
Yeah, so what's the answer then? To this one?
2.
2. So it's 2 root 5. That's all you got to do. You simplify the one you can, and you leave the one alone that you can't. So the answer is 2 root 5. Okay, here's another one like that. Square root of 72. Ew. What is the square root of 72? Oh, one other little side note. Square roots have a little 2 right there. I know that seems like I've never seen that before. It's because you haven't ever been to this advanced math before. You can actually have cube roots too, so they need a little number right there. But if you don't put a little number right there, they just default to, oh, you must mean square root. Okay, so square root of 72. Now, there's a lot of things you could break up a 72 into, but there's a best one, and that is square root of 36 times the square root of 2. So then, what's the final answer? I got a cell phone up on my front ledge. Put it on up here. Set it right here. You can have it back when you go to lunch. All right, Trevor, do you know what the square root of 36 is? Don't have that one? All right. It's 6. So then the answer is 6 root 2. That's all it is to it. That makes sense? Okay. Here's another one like that. Square root of 8, believe it or not. Make 2 square roots. Don't try to do it all in your head. Kids do that all the time. They're like, 4 root 2. No, don't just guess. Write down the 2 square roots that this breaks into. And then one of them will work out nice. I thought you said 4 root 2 isn't the answer. Because it isn't. What is the answer? 2 root 2. Because this one works out to 2. How many of you had 2 root 2? Okay, good. Square root of 27. If half the class gets this within 15 seconds, I will know we've got this. Did you know it was root 9 and root 3, and therefore 3 root 3? How many of you had that? All right, I'm feeling like you're getting this. If you didn't get that, maybe it's just because you didn't know what made 27. In which case, you'd have a calculator, and then you'd go, what's 27 divided by 3? You'd like think maybe 3 goes in, and it would have said 9, and you'd be like, oh, root 9, root 3. Okay? All right. So that's simplifying square roots. The next, and this is like one of the last things I have to teach you, is x equals negative b plus or minus the, can you finish it? Don't say it, write it. This formula you learned in regular algebra. You are now in higher algebra. Theoretically, I'm going to guess we'll have 5 people who remember the rest of this formula. It's called the quadratic formula. Don't say it, just write it. If you don't remember it, I will tell you again, but we will expect you to memorize it. Okay, Liv, do you remember square root of You don't remember it? Okay. I'm going to try like 3 people and then I'll give up if I have to. Hallie, do you think you got this? Okay. Quinn? One more. Cyril. Know this formula? X equals negative b plus or minus the square root. All right, I can tell this is not a big favorite. Does anybody in the whole room think they remember it? 4AC.
Over 2A.
Oh, you are so close. Grace, can you finish the one missing piece?
B squared minus 4ac.
B squared. You were so close. All right, everybody write that down. X equals negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. How do you expect us to remember that? Well, there is a dumb little song. Now, I'm going to sing it again. I'm not going to make you sing it. I can't really, so I'm just going to sing it for you. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And that's a way people teach people to memorize this. Because, you know, if once you get it kind of stuck in your head. Honestly, what the weirdest thing is during the test, I've heard in the past people are going, like kind of like humming the song to themselves to remember it. So I'm going to just do it a couple times by leaving a little gap. X equals, what do you think? Negative b. Plus or minus the what? Of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now I'm going to write it one more time with gaps. You got to move to a blank part of your screen here. That's part of the formula. Missing tragic pieces. Fill in the little pieces that are missing. Who remembered the negative on the B? Good. Minus 4ac all over 2a. There is the quadratic formula. Ooh, one more thing. This is the only formula you'll probably memorize that has a double sign in it. Plus and minus. It's got a double sign. That's rare. Plus and minus. It means that you do the formula once with a plus and then once with a minus. Now, don't worry. Tonight's homework doesn't make you use this formula yet. You're going to eventually, though, like that's what our final test will have, is using this formula. So what the heck are the A and the B and the C? I'm going to show you. If I have an equation like this, do you get that that would be A, and that would be B, and that would be C? They're the 3 numbers we have in the formula, and they're in order. So it's not really hard to find them. It's going to be 3 numbers. And they're just in order. That A is 2, B is 4, and C is -8. Okay, this is our A, this is our B, and this is our C. All right, so that's a big formula, right? Now, today, what we focus in on is this part right here. B squared minus 4ac. Because, do you get, if this happens to come out negative, I will be doing the square root of a negative, which is illegal. Technically, it makes imaginary answers because you can't do square roots of negative. Let's talk about that for a second. Do you get, if you have a square root of 25, you're fine because it's 5. But why can't you do the square root of negative 25? Because negative 5 times negative 5 does not equal negative 25. There is no answer for this. So you can't do square roots of negatives. So what we're saying is, if you have this part of the formula and turning out to be negative, you do stick in the numbers and you get something like, I don't know, negative 25. Well, then there's no answers. Do you get it's kind of handy to know that the answer to the question is that there's no answers? All right. Well, what are the other two things that could happen? If this comes out negative, then there's no answers. Negative, no answers. Or it could come out positive. And if it comes out positive, there's going to be two answers. Or the last thing that this could do is if you calculate this all out, you could come up with an answer that comes up to equal 0. So there's three things. It could come out positive, it could come out negative, or it could come out to 0. And if it comes out to 0, think about it. If you had no answers for negative and 2 answers for positive, you have something in between if you're at 0, because you're right in between negative and positive. So if you have a 0 for your discriminant, this is called the discriminant, then you have one answer, because it's exactly between positive and negative, which is 2 answers and 0 answers. So you get one answer. All right. Now, honestly, you may want to get just one little thing down for notes, because I'm telling you, even my honors pre-calc kids have a hard time remembering this one. So write it down. Ready? If D is greater than 0, that's called the discriminant. I'm not going to expect you to spell discriminant. But the discriminant is that b squared minus 4ac thing. So write that down too. If b squared minus 4ac comes out bigger than 0, you get 2 answers. And that's what your homework is tonight. They're going to say, find the discriminant. And then they're going to say, and then tell how many answers the problem has. If it comes out positive, it'll have 2 answers. If it comes out equal to 0, then it'll have 1 answer. And if the discriminant comes out, wait, I don't want to change colors. It'll look like it's important. So just keep it in the same color. Discriminant is less than 0, then I have no answers. There's no real answers because you can't do a square root of a negative. There is the thing, only thing that you really had to have as notes. That's different than doing practice problems with me. You should keep doing those, but like put a circle around this or something. Because I guarantee you get to your homework and they're going to say, what's a discriminant? You might remember that's b squared minus 4ac. But when they say, tell how many solutions it has, you're going to need to look it up on this little chart. It's either 2 answers or 1 answer or 0 answers, depending if it's positive or negative or 0. Okay, so here is an example problem, right along next to it. Y equals x squared minus 3x minus 4. The last whole chapter was about factoring. And if you can factor it, you should. That's my favorite saying. But in this unit, they don't want the answers yet. They just want the discriminant. So we do this b squared minus 4ac thing. All right. And I may have lied to you a little bit and said that there would always be 3 numbers. Because look, there isn't 3 numbers. But there really is if you know what to do. What's the first number? The A term. It's a 1. Do you get how that's A? That's B. And that's C. Now, b squared, what's the rest of that thing? Minus 4ac. Good. Now, let's actually pull the numbers and stick them in. Something squared minus 4 something something. What did I just do there? I just said instead of A and B and C, let's put empty parentheses. I've been saying since the beginning of the year that the best way to do this, whenever you have a variable, is to put an empty parenthesis and then you drop in whatever you want. I want 1, -3, and -4 dropped in. So B is first here. B is -3. A is right here. It's 1. And C, there, is -4. That is the discriminant, boys and girls. This is the easy part. You just have to do a little math. What's -3 squared? That's 9. And what's -4 times 1 times another -4? Plus 16. And 9 plus 16, everybody do it in your head? Come on, renew my faith in the young people of the world. Nobody can add 9 and 16. Come on. 25. There we go. Okay. So what's the discriminant? Is 25. Now remember me saying that you're probably going to have to look up the second part? How many solutions does this equation have? Well, the discriminant came out positive. Unless you have really good memory, you're going to have to go to this chart and go, discriminant came out positive, so how many answers do you get? 2. See, I looked it up on the chart. That's what I'd do. Now, I do have it memorized because I'm a math teacher, but if I were you, I'd look it up and go, okay, it came out positive, so then I have 2 solutions. What are the solutions? We don't even care today. All we care is that it has 2 solutions to this equation. Now, I can tell you, because I remember factoring from just the other day, what the 2 solutions even are. Because I can put an x and an x, I can say there's a plus and a minus, and I can say it's got to be a 4 and a 1, and I know those 2 solutions. They're x equals 4 and x equals -1. You guys can do that. We just got tested on that. That's not that hard. So it's got 2 solutions. I could have found out that way, but you're going to have to answer a test question. What's the discriminant? So you got to do this, get the answer, and know that since it's positive, that's this one. There's 2 answers. All right, we're going to do one more, and then we're all going to dismiss as soon as we have finished this one question. Yes, fast?
So for the discriminant, for the answer, would you put 25 or 2 solutions?
Both. The discriminant is this, but they'll always ask, so how many solutions? 2. So discriminant was 25, so there's 2 solutions. All right, here's so one last one. X squared plus 6x minus 7. No, wait, that's too big, sorry. 2x minus 3. That'll be a lot easier. Okay, so figure out b squared minus 4ac. And then when you get the answer, figure out if that means there's 2 solutions or 1 solution or no solutions. E and A, what is A, B, and C?
1 is A.
Yep, A is 1.
2 is B. And
B is 2.
-3 is C.
Yep. Now pop them in. Liv, what's B squared? Yep, 2 squared will be 4. And then A is 1 and C is -3. 4 plus, notice it was 2 negatives, 12, 16. Now the trickier part, so how many solutions does it have? 2 answers because it came up positive. All right, it's lunchtime. All right, here we go. This is a typical problem for today. Square root of 40. And then you go, well, I don't know what makes a 40. 5 and 8. The problem with that is neither one of them works nice. Like neither one of 5 or 8 has a perfect square root. Those are called perfect squares. Neither one's a perfect square. So just stop and go, well, there's got to be another one then. Who found it? Yes, 4 and 10. Why is that better? Sorry, that's my... I snoozed my lunch alarm and then it came back to haunt me. Okay, square root of 40 and the square root of 10. Why is that better? Ian, why is that better?
Squares.
So which one works? So, you're right. So, final answer? Square root of 4 is so much pressure. 2 root 10. That's it. Okay. So that's one kind of question. How many of you feel confident on that kind? Good. Then the other kind is like this. You get this equation. Let's say it's 2x squared plus 2x plus 2. All 2's. On purpose, making it a little weird. And then they say, what's the discriminant? And a lot of times the follow-up is, so how many solutions does it have? And that's where you got to look it up on that little chart. Discriminant needs a formula. You guys are young enough, you probably still have a decent short-term memory. You haven't destroyed it with all the chemicals in your food and the eating nasty Pop-Tarts and things. So I bet you remember b squared, what? Minus 4ac, good. Okay. Then you got to look it up, the other thing on the chart, because seriously, there's a lot to that. I happen to have it memorized. Anybody want to prove to me that you actually can, without looking at your chart? Do any of you actually have this memorized already? Wait a minute. Less than 0 equals 0. Something's wrong here. Bigger than 0 equals 0. Oh, that's right. Those are the 3 cases. Oh, I'm getting old. Anybody got this? You can do it, Jackson? What's this one? 2 solutions. Good. What's the next one?
1 solution.
Yep. And?
No solution.
No solutions. Very good. Okay, so back to this discriminant thing. In this weird case, I would put in a 2 in all 3 spots. Because A was 2, and B was 2, and C was 2. Everybody do it for a second. Figure out the discriminant answer. And then which of these is it? It's one of those 3. I'll pause for a second. Find the discriminant. One big question that usually somebody asks is, are we supposed to square root it at the end? No. I know that that's in the other big formula, but we don't do that when you're finding the discriminant. You don't square root it. We will when we get to the end of the unit, but right now, don't square root it. Yes?
For the a value, so the 2x squared, we need to write out the formula and like plug the numbers in. Are we supposed to square the 2 or the 2 squaring the x?
Okay, so you only put the numbers in. So when we put something in here, here, and here, we only put a number. So there won't be an x because you're going to only put in the number in front of the x. Okay, so there won't be any x's. See how there's no x's in there?
Yeah.
So I replaced the b with 2 because this was the b, and this was the a, and this was the c, and there is no x's. Okay, just the numbers in front of the x's. All right, so there we go, and now we got 2 squared is 4 minus 4 times 2 is 8 times 2 is 16, and 4 minus 16 is negative 12. Raise your hand if you had negative 12. I think that's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And then that came out negative, which is less than 0, so no solutions. Who had no solutions? Good, you were right. I think you got it. So let's finish and get to the homework. So right now, I'd like to get to the homework, which is a Schoology quiz. Open that puppy up. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to tell me what problem 1 is, and then we'll work on it together. Make sure you get started on the right foot at least. Yes, Grace.
For the Schoology quiz, if there's no answer, is it 0 or none?
It's a good question. Saying the answer is 0 is a different thing than there is no answers, all right? So, your discriminant, let's say you do the b squared minus 4ac thing, and it comes out to actually 0. Then that's an answer. That's not no answer. So when they get a 0, so if you want to know what do I write when it says no, when I know the answer is no solution, then just put that there are 0 answers. Okay? And just all you'll have to type in is 0, because they're asking you how many solutions are there. And because there's no solutions, then it's 0 solutions. Okay. So would you read me the first one, please? You got it, eh?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Read it to me. Number 1.
Below is between 2 integers, and then it's the square root of 18.
All right. Would you agree that's pretty close to the square root of 16, which is one that we know? What is the square root of 16?
4.
And what's the other one that's close to this? Square root of
25.
25. You have a short-term memory. Do you get that this is between 4 and 5? Now, the Schoology quiz doesn't actually want you to type in like 4.3 because it's really hard to guess whether it's 4.2 or 4.3 or... So they just want to say it's between 4 and 5. Okay. Let's do one more like that. Kennedy, read me number 2. Square root of 54. Is it one where they want us to simplify it or between 2 numbers? All right. So what's close to the square root of 54 that we actually know? Let me think. 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64. I finally found one. Square root of 64. And that one's what? You guys know that one? 8. Let's go the other way. Square root of 53, and no, that doesn't work. 52, 51, 49. Thank you for saving me some time there. And that's 7. So then it's between 7 and 8. Carl, are you already done with number 2?
Yeah.
Then could you read me number 3?
Just square root of 27.
Does it say what we're supposed to do?
Yeah, it says simplify the following radical.
All right. So that's the kind where you go 2 square roots. Can you think of what they are?
93.
And you're correct, sir. And then can you simplify it a little further?
Yes. 3 and then 3.
Nice. Now you're going to want to know how to type this into Schoology.
It's
Okay, SQRT, is that what it says?
yeah.
And does it say to put a parenthesis on it or not?
No.
Excellent. 3 SQRT3. Sometimes I've seen the teachers type a parenthesis, sometimes not. So, okay, there we go. There's that one. Yes, we can go further.
We can do a discriminant.
Sure. Would you read me one?
5 equals 4x squared minus x.
4x squared minus x. Okay. Is this, which problem is this? Number 4? Number 9. Okay. And it's totally fine. You're doing 1, 2, skip a few, and we'll go to number 9 because that's where it gets hard. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides first. I wish I would have told you this earlier, but I'm really glad you brought this up. You need to get it set equal to 0 in order for this whole thing to work. So what I do, I took away 5 so that this side would equal 0. Then you have A, B, and C. Okay, you got to get them all on one side and have the other side be 0. There's A, there's B, and if there's no number, what number is actually there? 1. And there's C. So there's A, there's B, there's C. And so if they want us to do the discriminant, that's B squared minus 4AC. So I feel like if I keep doing the whole problem, I'm a bad teacher. So I'm going to just say from here, you stick in 4 for A, -1 for B, and -5 for C. And then that will be the discriminant. And if it comes out positive, remember positive ones give you 2 solutions. Negative discriminants give you no solutions or 0 solutions. And ones that equal 0 have weirdly 1 solution. So those are the 3 things It's kind of like a mini chart to see how many solutions you'll have. All right, that's all I got for you for the video for today.